Becky, a new home invasion horror thriller action hybrid that is getting a lot of attention online because it stars two comedians in a very serious movie. This stars Kevin James, who was on the sitcom The King of Queens and then the sitcom Heaven Can Wait. He also did a string of movies, the Grown Ups movies with Adam Sandler and his crew. Paul Blart Mall Cop, and the second one, Zookeeper. Here Comes the Boom. He may have been in one or two others. And then Joel McHale. Joel McHale, who hosted The Soup. The Soup, for people who don't remember, was kind of like Tosh.0 before there was a Tosh.0. He was on Community for a good while. He was in Ted. And then it stars Lulu Wilson, who is not a comedian. She actually has done a fair amount of horror. But yeah, Kevin James is the villain. Kevin James, Paul Blart Mall Cop, is a child-murdering, neo-Nazi escaped convict with a giant swastika tattooed on the back of his bald head. You wouldn't recognize him if you saw him.
What happened by your fort, Becky?
Search continues for 4 inmates who escaped federal custody this morning. Authorities say the men are armed and extremely dangerous.
Come on, boy, let's go swimming.
Can you wait a sec?
What is she doing here?
You let her walk all over you.
She's 13.
Jeff, this gentleman lost his dog.
Okay, well, why don't you give us your number?
My dog is a Rottweiler. Purebred, or as the Germans call them, Rottweiler Metzgerhund. That's why you never let them mate with other breeds. You get the worst of both.
Okay, I think it's time for you to go.
So, Becky is about a neo-Nazi gang led by Kevin James' character that escapes from prison and end up at a summer house where Becky, the title character, played by Lulu Wilson, is with her dad, Joel McHale, his new fiance, and the fiance's pre-adolescent child. So we get a fair amount of backstory on Becky early on, the character, that her mom has died, that she has not handled it well, that she's going through a serious rebellious streak, that she resents the hell out of her dad, and especially hates the fact that he's gotten back in the dating pool, let alone when she finds out that he's getting engaged. She doesn't want anything to do with her would-be stepmother, shows no interest in her soon-to-be little brother, and basically only seems to have a bond with this one dog she has named Diego. Now, there are actually 2 dogs, but she only seems to give a shit about one of them. In the meantime, Kevin James and his crew are straight-up psychopaths that are just kind of last house on the lefting their way to this lake house. They're just wreaking havoc, destroying everyone in their path. This is a MacGuffin movie. This is a movie that entirely hinges around the search for a thing. The thing doesn't matter. It's just a thing. Kevin James and his crew, for reasons that if they were explained, I missed it, hid a thing in this family's lake house. So the whole movie, this is a home invasion movie, so there's really not much plot. Now, people talk about slasher movies not having much plot. No, home invasion movies don't have much plot. I'm not a particular fan of home invasion movies. I probably wouldn't have bothered watching this if I hadn't heard that Kevin James was good in it. Because when you hear the Paul Blart Mall Cop not only gave a serious performance as a hardcore villain, but did a good job, it's hard not to be a little bit curious. And I was curious. And Kevin James is very good in this movie. He is. The movie's not that good, though. Watching Kevin James in this, I had a feeling like the first time I saw 1 Hour Photo with Robin Williams. Robin Williams, R.I.P., was a fantastic comedian, a very solid, he did a lot of comedy drama, and he did a lot of straight comedy, and he did stand-up. But after he won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting, he kind of, reassessed his career and decided he wanted to do something dark. And he did a string of very dark movies in the early 2000s. And 1 Hour Photo was kind of the most accomplished and darkest of all those roles. And that's how I feel watching Kevin James this. I didn't feel like I was seeing a comedian doing an all right job of not being a comedian. I mean, I've had that feeling watching some other movies. Steve Carell in Foxcatcher, for instance. I wasn't blown away by that performance because I felt like Steve Carell was doing a good job of not being Steve Carell, but I didn't feel like he was necessarily doing all that great a job of representing this character, unlike, say, Robin Williams in 1 Hour Photo, where it was just a phenomenal performance all around. Now, I can't call Kevin James phenomenal in this movie. I can't call him extraordinary or any of those kind of movie trailer tagline things. And the reason is because the movie fails him. This isn't a very good movie. It's not a bad movie, and if all you want out of a movie is a hard R home invasion thriller, this is fine. It's not boring. It's reasonably well made. It's from the director of Cooties, if anyone remembers that, with Elijah Wood and Lee Wannell. That comedy where the kids turn into zombies and attack the teachers in the elementary school. And they also did something with Dave Bautista called Bushwick, maybe? I think it was called Bushwick. I didn't see it. Dave Bautista does a lot of straight-to-DVD stuff. It's hard to keep track. Not that I even really care all that much. I mean, I like Dave Bautista. I just... whatever. So this is a directing team, and this is their third movie. And for the most part, it's pretty much a point-and-shoot type deal. I wasn't terribly impressed with the visuals in this movie. It looked kind of cheap, to be totally honest. The acting is very good, though. I mean, like I said, Kevin James, you don't see the man in the role. The way he just stares, the gruff voice, the way he carries himself. He seems like a sociopath. He really does. And, this big guy with these tattoos doing the Nazi salute, talking about the brotherhood, talking about racial purity, ordering kit murders. You buy it. It's a very good performance. I completely buy him in this, and I would very much like to see him do more stuff like this. He completely proves that he can do serious roles, completely. And if he did a horror movie, or if he did an action movie, or if he did a straightforward drama, I'd be open to watching it. Joel McHale is Joel McHale. He's a smug yuppie. That's what he is in everything. But he's not trying to be funny in this, which is kind of the difference. He's not really cracking wise at all in this movie. He is still a smug yuppie, though. That's every character I've ever seen him play. It's just... Here, he's not trying to be funny. And he does carry the emotional weight of the role. So I bought him as this dad who finds himself in this home invasion scenario where, it's an impossible situation. You're outnumbered, you're outgunned, you just want to protect your family. We can't all be Schwarzenegger, we can't all just throw down and kick 8 guys' asses at once. And he sort of knows that. And it's a difficult situation. He plays it very well. Lulu Wilson is the movie's star, though. She's the title character. She's Becky. She's great. She's very, very good. Now, she was apparently in Annabelle Creation, I think, and Ouija Experiment, the Ouija prequel, the one that people actually liked. I'm sure she's been in some other stuff. Those are kind of the 2 things I know her from. She's a good actress. She's very good in the role. I didn't like her character. I didn't like Becky. And that's kind of a problem because she's the hero, or maybe anti-hero. She's sullen, she's pouty. They don't give her much of a personality beyond that. She's just this grumbling teen. I mean, I guess we're supposed to automatically like her just because she's had this terrible tragedy in her life. But we never get her interacting with anyone in the present tense. We have a couple flashbacks to her dying mom, but she never earns us liking her. I mean, she likes her dog, but even that, this isn't a very detailed or ambitious script. This is a script that's just a home invasion movie. And if you're saying to yourself, well, neo-Nazis, that's new territory. There aren't a lot of home invasion movies that do that. The fact that Kevin James and his crew are neo-Nazis is damn near irrelevant. They're the villains of the moment. I mean, if this movie had been made in the 90s, they would have been a street gang. If this movie had been made in the 80s, they would have been Italian mobsters. If this movie had been made in the 70s, they would have been, New York sleazebag ex-cons. Just neo-Nazis are the villains of the moment, so that's who they are. Aside from maybe 3 speeches and the tattoos, it doesn't play into the movie at all. The fact that Joel McHale's in an interracial relationship isn't even all that significant. It's mentioned a couple times. So yeah, the Nazi thing doesn't add much to the movie one way or the other. And honestly, if the Lulu Wilson character had an opinion about them being Nazis, that might have been interesting. If she had been an activist or something, that could have been interesting, but she doesn't. She's just a little sociopath. She takes to killing like a duck to water. And that's even kind of a plot point. And that could be interesting, except that it's not, because that's not what the movie's interested in. This movie doesn't strive to do anything more than deliver home invasion style thrills. And the flick's gimmick is that it's kind of trying to be this hard R Home Alone, but it's not the first movie to do that. We've seen that several times already. We've seen the hard R kids fight back, and it's never all that great. This may be the best of them, but that's not saying very much. There's a big sticking point that's hard to avoid in that this is a 14, 15-year-old girl, weighs 100 pounds, maybe 110, but I'd be surprised if she was 110. We don't establish anything in her history to say she knows how to fight. She just does. And the fact that these guys can't just handle her immediately. There are scenes where you see guys that outweigh her by 150 pounds, and that's not an exaggeration. Kevin James is a big dude. His right-hand man, a guy they call Apex, that guy's built like The Rock. I mean, that guy is massive. And they're like struggling to do anything. One hit. She goes down. Done. I'm sorry. It's just, I didn't buy it.
I'm not gonna let them get away with this.
You put a 105-pound, 15-year-old girl up against a grown-ass man that outweighs her. There's a reason there's weight classes in boxing. You know, it's a sticking point. Like, there's one scene where she's stabbing a guy with pencils. Just pencils. The thing is that no matter how angry this girl is, if she stabs me with a pencil, it might kind of hurt. You know what I mean? If you've ever been stabbed with a pencil, if you remember elementary school, if you ever got into a fight with a kid and he stabbed you with a pencil, that has happened to me. It kind of hurts. It's not debilitating. Blood does not shoot out of the wound. I mean, a grown man stabs someone with a pencil, yeah, you could probably really hurt him. But a kid is just, ow. Don't do that again. It's stuff like that. The whole thing requires a tremendous leap of disbelief. And even that I'd be on board with if the movie was better, but this is just a cat and mouse movie. That's all it is. It's just run, hide, fight, run, hide, fight. There's not enough here. And the fact that I didn't really care about the good characters, and I wasn't adequately intimidated by the bad characters, meant that this was just kind of a thing that was happening in front of me. The good characters have no depth. Joel McHale comes the closest, but his fiance is strong black woman. There's no personality to her at all. At all. I know nothing about this woman. She seems like an all right mom to her kid. She has a little kid of her own. That's it. There's nothing there. Lulu Wilson, Becky, like I said, she I would have liked it if this kid had been torturing small animals, you know, like Michael Myers in Zombies Halloween, or if this kid had been scaring her fellow students, or had been planning a school shooting, something. Like, there are ways you could have made this kid interesting, and ways that you could have made it to where when the neo-Nazis break into your house, you're thinking, oh, they do not know what they just walked into. But they don't. She initially just seems like some whiny brat. They could have been off of any ABC drama you watch it with your parents because you're at their house and it's just on the TV. You know, like just that whiny earbuds, cell phone, yeah, dad. Like, just that character. That's all she seems like for the first 15 to 20 minutes of this movie. Then she just suddenly goes ape shit. It doesn't feel earned. And speaking of the villains not feeling adequately intimidating, their escape from prison is off camera, so we don't really see how they escape from prison. Most of what they do is off camera, so there's tons of gore in this movie, but it's all aimed at the villains. What the villains do is not gory at all, even though they do kill several people. Well, what they do to one character has a little bit, but still not much. So, the fact that Becky is able to essentially whoop Kevin James's ass 20-30 minutes into the movie basically just establishes, because he's the leader, establishes up front that she's not in any real danger. And this has kind of that You're Next vibe. If you remember the movie You're Next, where the lead is too capable too soon so that they don't... It feels like that Watchmen quote, "You're not locked in here with me. I'm not locked in here with you. You're locked in here with me." Like, it feels like they're in danger from her. That, she's not in danger from them. So with that in mind, I just didn't feel much for this movie. The end of it introduces kind of an interesting character where Becky does something that's genuinely morally questionable. But even that didn't so much shock me, because at that point, Lulu Wilson plays this character like a psychopath. So even that didn't really shock me. It just kind of cinched the deal on me not liking the character. It's like, okay, well, that was uncool. So yeah, it's just... I didn't much care for this movie. It's worth a watch just to see Kevin James, because I don't think I've actually liked anything he's been involved with, but I was alive in the 2000s and had cable, so I've seen episodes of The King of Queens. Yeah, that's almost unavoidable. If you were alive in the 2000s and had cable, you saw episodes of that show. I may have seen bits and pieces of a few movies of his stand-up. Never been a fan particularly. Not that I dislike him, just never been a particular fan. But it is still really interesting seeing what he does in this movie. And it's a good, interesting... I mean, the character's solid. It's just not a very good movie built around him. As for gore, yeah, there is a good amount of gore. There's an eyeball gag that is trying to kind of equal to that eyeball gag from Hostel, the first Hostel movie. That was alright, but the gore is really pretty spaced out. And this movie does something that is kind of a major annoyance of mine, which is where a character will get a horrible, debilitating injury, and 20 minutes later, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, they just walk... It's the idea in movies that you can walk off anything. Oh, I had a terrible injury that would land me in the trauma ward for a month, but I'm fine 20 minutes later. Yeah, there's one character who gets shot in the leg, just a hole blown through their leg. Blood, tourniquet, whole thing. They seem perfectly fine after about 20 minutes. There's like I said, the character who has their eyeball ripped out, they seem perfectly fine after 20 minutes. Becky gets bashed in the head with a 2x4 at one point. She seems, you guessed it, perfectly fine after about 20 minutes. And if you're doing this on a movie about Marines or something, I can buy that they're trained to take the pain or something. But with I don't like it when they do this in movies. So yeah, the only reason to watch this movie is to see Kevin James. And if you're a fan of Lulu Wilson, I'm sure she has a fan base, and she is very good in the movie. Like I said, the character's unlikable, but the performance is good. So you can't discredit the performance just because the character's unlikable. And to some extent, I think the point of this character is that she's supposed to be scary. It's almost like Becky's scarier than the Kang. Honestly, if I was dealing with Kevin James, I'd kind of know what I was getting. If I was dealing with this little crazy brat, come at me, bite my ear off or some friggin' thing. Yeah, it's fine. If you like home invasion movies, if you like just a very bare bones, straightforward thriller, it's fine. I thought it was a little underwhelming.